Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call this special call board meeting and budget workshop, today being Monday, May 22nd, 2023. We are meeting here as the Board of Trustees for the San Felipe Del Rio CISD. Madam Secretary, would you call roll for us?
Yes, sir. Ms. Luna Chavez,
Present.
Mr. Overfelt, Ms. Gonzalez,
Here.
Mr. Mesa,
Here.
Mr. Galindo,
Present.
Ms. Haynes,
Here.
and myself. Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Let the record show that we do have a quorum of board members, and this meeting has been duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. This time we'll have opening ceremonies. We've got a little bit of an echo here. First, with opening ceremonies, we'll stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Mr. Overfelt will be coming in a little bit later today, so he's got something that he'll come in a little bit later today. First item we have is a budget workshop, first 3A on the agenda, revenues and expenditures. Amy Childress.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. This evening, I will be presenting our first look at the 2023-24 Budget Interactive Workbook. But before I do that, we have two presentations we would like to share with you that to help with the discussion in the workbook. The first will be by Ms. Sandra Hernandez on special ed, and then the second will be from Ms. Aide Garcia on our substitute rates.
Thank you, Amy. Good evening, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. This evening, I'm going to share with you a special education workload staffing analysis. And so what I'm sharing with you this evening is to give you a general idea as to the testing and the educational testing that has been going on throughout the year. And I'm going to give you also a comparison of the testing from last year to this year so that you can have a good idea as to just what this year has brought to us and what this has meant for special education department. So as I shared with you earlier, the year-to-year data analysis that I'm sharing with you, in the 2022-23 school year, the district special education department experienced a surge in referrals for services. This was a tremendous surge. The number of initial evaluation more than doubled this from the year previous to this year. And we can mostly attribute this to learning loss and certainly child find. And child find is important because we are required as any special ed program to be able to assess children who are possibly in need of services. So the vast majority of referrals that you will see here require full and individual initial evaluation. So these evaluation, the school district receives written consent from parents, and so the parent or the legal guardian, these tests begin for children beginning just under the age of 5. And then you will see that there's also testing that happens that are additional testing for students who are currently in the program, but maybe perhaps during the course of the work that they've been doing with the children, they're in need of some additional testing, such as dyslexia or speech. And then you'll see in the next column, you'll see the community referrals. As I mentioned to you earlier, we're responsible for testing not only students who are enrolled in our school district, but also out in the community. And then you see the next column. That next column are your early childhood referrals. And this will give you the total. And so what you see here, if you look at that very first column, the number of initial referrals from 375 last school year to 833 referrals this school year is significant. And when you see also at the very end, last school year, by the time the whole year was completed, they completed 603 referrals and assessments. This year, we're not done yet. We still have to close out the year, but this is what you see up to this point. As of last week, there were 1,140 assessments completed by our special education department, and this is huge. I'm going to break this chart down a little further because now I'm going to break them down by the types of assessments that were completed. We know that we've completed over 1,000 referrals and assessments. Where did they fall exactly? So let me show you this one. This particular frame shares with you the academic referral comparison chart. So just the functional assessments. While the numbers of referrals need to be completed, you'll see that there was 785 of those were initial referrals for academic evaluations. Of those, you'll see those additional referrals. We did 32, just under, so you'll see that's about average for students who are already in the program. And then the community referrals, again, you'll see 13 and 16. So again, you'll see that these are about average. And so your total of academic referrals completed last school year to this school year, and you'll see the significant number from 281 and 833 tests that were completed just for academics. That's significant. This chart shows you the dyslexia. Again, this is the same breakdown of tests that were completed. These were the referrals for dyslexia. Last school year, there were 39 initial referrals. This school year, we had 382 referrals for dyslexia. And you'll see that for additional referrals, we did see a little bit of an increase, but not much, but roughly it'll be the average from 10 to 15. Community referrals, we had 1. And for your total, last school year, 50 referrals for dyslexia in comparison to 398. Once again, that is huge. The next chart that I'm sharing with you, this one is, these are referrals or requests for behavior and autism-related disorders. So for this type of assessment, it requires the licensed school psychologist to evaluate these more complex special needs. So you'll see the comparison from the previous year to this school year, 66 and 104. So yes, there was an increase, but we didn't see that significant increase for the academic area or the dyslexia area. So here, again, we've seen some additional referrals from 8 and 14. The community referrals, we did see some increases here from 8 to 22. ECI, 13 and 14, they're roughly average. They're about the same. And the total number of assessments completed for behavior and autism-related disorders from 95 to 154. This frame shares the speech referrals. In 2021-2022, we had 167 referrals for speech. This year, we had 260 referrals. It's about another 100 more than the previous year. For additional referrals, we had 13 last year and 22 this year. The significance, look at your community referrals. We had a big increase. We had 59 and 88 this year. For ECI referrals, we actually saw a little bit of a decline from 89 to 69. But your total, looking at 328 total referrals and assessments completed for speech, were 328 last year and 439 this school year. That is another 100, a little over 100. So it goes to say that during this school year, we had to contract. We had to have contracts to get our staff help so that they could complete these assessments and so that they can complete them in a timely manner, because it's not just completing their assessments, they have to complete them within a specified time frame. And so this required us to outsource and to contract with other individuals or companies to be able to help out. As you will see in this particular chart, you will see how this was broken up. So, for example, you'll see the very first one, Ms. Carranza, she did complete it approximately 30, this is just this school year, just to give you a general idea. For speech, they completed 52 referrals. They assisted us with that many assessments. We contracted 2 diagnosticians to assist, and they've completed 40 combined. And then we've contracted out with Presence Learning, and you'll see Presence Learning not only did your academic referrals, but they've also completed some of your dyslexia referrals, and that is significant. So much that we are bringing later to the board, later in your agenda today, to extend this contract just to make sure we are completing these assessments this year and on time. So, in keeping up with the demands and meeting these timelines, as I mentioned to you, our staff has done an exceptional amount of work. They have done this. They have achieved, they've been able to test more students than ever to meet their needs. They have been able to decentralize, we've been able to decentralize key staff, our diagnosticians, to campuses just to meet these students' needs because the need is there. And what are our challenges? Well, certainly, we've had an increased demand for referral and testing. We have staffing needs. We have staffing needs for evaluators, and teachers in critical need areas. So what are we proposing? We're proposing today, this evening, in this way to help alleviate the growth that we're seeing. Definitely there are challenges, and this is just something we have to address because of the high demands. So we're proposing to hire 2 additional diagnosticians, 2 ARD facilitators, 1 dyslexia teacher, 2 speech language pathologists, and 2 SLP, speech language pathologist assistants. And this is my presentation this evening. I can answer any questions that you may have at this point based on this presentation.
Sandra, just for the historical value of this, at some point, there used to be a certain percentage, I don't know if it was 12%, you could not have more than 12 or 15% of the enrollment that you had in special classes. That went away some years back through litigation and other things, but when I look at some of these numbers, they're still in charge of 504 too, right?
Yes, sir, they are. They are in charge of 504 as well.
Okay. Now, some of these 504s are very minor medication things. They don't involve behavior or medical.
To answer your question, probably, and I believe maybe Monica may be here, to answer your question, some of the tests that you'll see additional testing, if they are students who are already identified with a disability, 504, they may have needed additional testing. So they may have needed dyslexia, for example, or maybe they may have needed a functional assessment. They may have needed some other type of assessment, but that's not true of all cases. That's just, it may happen, but that's not true of every single case.
Because I know that, for example, allergic reactions, when they go from one school to another, that communication has to exist between one campus, from the outgoing campus to the receiving campus, so that those instructions in a 504 will follow that student. And so that involves some additional
Some time.
workload. Okay, I'll turn it over to board members. Questions? Dr. Rios?
I wanted to just make a couple points. There's a difficulty in hiring, particularly diagnosticians and speech language pathologists and even assistants, because they're only available when they're certified. The problem is that of the cases in speech that were referred, you get almost 100% of the kids that qualified after they were assessed. So they have to be serviced. And we have to figure out how we service the students. So hiring the SLP assistants would be huge if they were to be available. If not, we also have to go back and think of how do we provide some assistance, because that's one area that we have to promote. We've identified the students, now we have to service them. Now for the diagnosticians, I think that at a minimum, even if we don't hire the diagnosticians, allotting the money so that then we can use it for contracted services, because if we get another surge, we have to be prepared to contract for these services to get the kids tested. Our facilitators, I feel confident that given the summer, we can recruit some people. The art facilitators are very important, because if we contract the testing for the FIEs, the academic needs, we have to have art facilitators for the arts, because these are out-of-town people and they're not necessarily present in the arts. So whether we allot for hiring people or allot the money that would otherwise go to hire people, it's important that we have that money there in the budget so that we can contract services in case we're not able to hire people. And that may be the preferred way to go for some of these places. But I really want to just mention to the board that if we can't recruit speech pathologist assistants, then we definitely have to have a way of growing some more on our own, because we have to provide those services ourselves. Okay. That was it.
Anyone else with a question? Board members? I know speech pathologists, we've always struggled to find speech pathologists. Now, are there any trends that you can, I'm concerned with the high rate of referrals and testing Have we looked into some of the other districts to see if that's occurring?
No, not
No.
yet, sir.
Not yet.
I have a question,
Becky?
if I may.
Yes.
I just wonder, is the criteria to identify the special needs students, does it still stand the same as before, years back, or have there been any changes in the criteria for identification?
Sure.
You know, this year or last year, or does it still stand the same as it was many years ago, or years
Dr.
before?
Rios?
Ma'am, there have been some minor changes. I'll ask Monica Luna to come up and specifically answer that.
Yes.
She'd have most experience. Ms. Luna, the question is, the testing and the criteria for students to be identified as having needs, special education, handicapping conditions, has that changed?
Yes, it has. This year, we did, dyslexia does fall under special education. Currently, that transition happened in November. And to date, since August, we've identified, or we've tested 571 students as of this past Thursday, the 18th. That's what we're currently at. So of course, our numbers have increased for special education and speech as well.
So would you say,
But
ma'am, that?
academics, I'm talking about, not.
Yeah, the eligibility
Academics.
criteria is the same. We still look at a pattern of strengths and weaknesses, and then we look at the students making progress.
I'm sorry, but to clarify, part of the surge would be related to transferring or including students with dyslexic needs in the count? Would that account for part of the surge?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Being dyslexic is now a specific learning disability.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. We have been reviewing the substitute compensation pay plan, and in your board communique, we included our recommendations. Today, we're going to present them and answer any questions you might have.
Do we have a copy of that?
No, sir.
Okay.
I didn't give it to you. I'm sorry.
It was in the update.
I'll get another copy.
Update.
So the board had also requested to look at Northeast School District. So you can see that these are their rates, the one that are in gray. So they have a certified teacher at 130. What we did review during this study is that we were paying our certified teachers $85, just like we were paying the teachers with degrees. So we are recommending to increase that substantial. So we're recommending to increase to 130. And then they were paying $85. We were paying half of the $85, which was $42.50. So we're recommending also to pay $150. For the long-term rate, it varies for them from $150 to $160. We're recommending $135 is what we're currently paying. So we're going to recommend $186. And these are for teachers that are not certified in the area that they're going to be substituting. They also pay $150 for Mondays and Fridays. So we're increasing from $186 to $196, which is $10 additional if they substitute on a Monday or Friday. For certified teachers in the area that they're subbing, North Side ISD does not have a rate. but we currently pay $200, and we want to recommend that to be $276. And for Mondays and Fridays would be $286. Now, if they're degreed but not certified, Northside pays $120. Currently, we pay $85, so we're recommending $117. If it's half-day, $70. And for long-term, currently, we pay $120, so we would like to recommend $165.50. And if they're subbing on Mondays and Fridays, is $175.50. Northside ISD requires teachers to have 90 semester hours, and they pay $110. We require 60 semester hours. Currently, we pay $71. We're recommending $98. And the half day is $35.50, so we're recommending $65. And we do not hire long-term substitutes if they do not have a degree. So we're not making a recommendation for that. From 0 to 59 college hours, we pay currently $58. We're recommending that to $80. They do take a substitute course if they have between 0 and 59 hours. The current is $29, so we're recommending $45. Instructional assistants at Northside ISD, they pay $90 a day. Currently, we pay $58. We're recommending $80. And the half day is $29, so we're recommending $45. And if they work on Mondays or Fridays, that would be $90. Also for paraprofessionals, for office and administrative support, Northside ISD pays $90, currently is $58, and if they're retired, then we pay their 70% of their daily rate. So we would like to recommend $80 and continue to pay the 70% daily rate for those that are retired. Current is $29 for half the rate, and then recommended is $45. And then if they work Monday or Friday, it would be $90 for long terms. Or I'm sorry, Monday or Friday. So any questions on these?
Yes. And I'll ask the board members to see if they have any questions also, but it has always been very difficult to find subs for, let's say, certain grade levels, middle school. Do they normally, ask, where am I going? And if it's middle school, I'm not going to go? What can be done? Because what I'm trying to avoid is for a paraprofessional to be pulled out to be placed in a room temporarily, and that becomes usually half day or full day sometimes, to avoid that. But there's been, and I've heard, again, personally from individuals that say, I don't go to middle school, I'm just elementary.
Okay, so for your first question is they do get to select, the substitutes get to select the campus they're going. There is an app, it's through Frontline, and they get to see what teachers are requesting substitutes, and then they select. Now, we're hoping that this increase, especially for the certified teachers, we're hoping that we're gonna attract our retired teachers, because they're gonna be getting paid $276, where is it? Let me see, degree, certified teacher right here. They're gonna be getting paid, if they're in the area that they're certified, right? It's $130. For the long term, it's $276, but that's $130 that they're gonna be getting paid. So we're hoping that we are gonna attract, because before we were only paying them $85. Mm-hmm. And of course, those individuals are gonna have experience, so I'm hoping that that would entice them to work at Del Rio Middle School.
It's a big switch from previous years, so I'm all for that. It's just that, I would want to avoid the current practice of pulling somebody out until somebody finds a sub, Dr. Rios?
Are you thinking that maybe we could have a differential for Del Rio Middle School? Like, we pay the same rate, but if you go to Del Rio Middle School, we provide extra $20?
No.
I'm just trying.
No. No, I'm trying to get some help for middle school because, again, the behavior, the number of students, and you look at an elementary school and you have 22. And then you go to middle school and it could be 32. And so I just want to alleviate some of the issues that are going on. But I'll turn it over to board members, Mr. Galindo.
And it's just to kind of echo what you're saying, because, I mean, it's great to see the raises for the substitute rates, but like you're saying, they're still going to pick their schools. So even if you do get more of a flow of people, you're going to probably pack up your elementary schools or which schools you want. And my worry is still going to be that the middle school is going to be a place maybe that people don't want to go, so we're going to run into the same deal. And they're the school that is needing a lot of help right now, a lot of students. And I wouldn't know, I mean, maybe with Dr. Rios, try to figure out a way to, make it a place to have subs at Del Rio Middle School. But I mean, the increases are great. They look great. It's just still trying to figure out the solution of how we're going to be able to attend to one school that we know that there's a need there. And that's just kind of maybe something we can look at how we would go about that. And I mean, I get it, they're subbing, so they get to choose their schools, and don't want to take that away. But even with that, we're going to get more people. It's just going to be maybe the last 5 people who maybe end up being at Del Rio Middle School because that's the only one available. So just so we can figure something out for that.
Yes. I'll turn it over. Mrs. Webb has a question.
Yes, and the question is not just Del Rio Middle School, it's also like high school. Because what I've heard from subs, and these are retired teachers that are subbing, is they sign up to go, let's say, into your classroom because you're going to be out, but you have an off period. So they anticipate they're going to have the off period to do whatever they need to prepare for the class that's coming in, but they're pulled out to go cover somebody else's class that didn't have a sub that day. And that's one of the biggest concerns from substitutes, including the retired substitutes that want to be at the secondary level. So I don't know what we can do with that.
Two things. First, to the point about Del Rio Middle School. One thing that we did this year during the second semester was that we asked certain individuals to be permanent subs at Del Rio Middle School. And I think we had 3 people. Okay, so possibly next year we can increase that to having 5 people. That means that we guarantee them employment every day as long as they commit to being at Del Rio Middle School. So that's one option to make sure that we always have some substitutes on hand, and those are not assigned except by the principal or his or her designee. But that helps, that'll alleviate some. So we'll explore that. I don't know who's making notes, but we'll explore having an increase in 5 long-term subs. Permanent subs at Del Rio Middle School. And even if we don't have 5 subs, they'll be guaranteed employment. That helps some. In terms of the substitutes having a conference period, if the substitute is a day-to-day substitute, well, there's nothing for them to do during that conference period because they're not grading papers, they're not planning. Now, I would say somebody that's going to long-term sub for them for 5 days, and they absolutely should not get pulled because then the expectation is that they do have to review some material and that sort of stuff. But if I'm subbing today at Del Rio High School and I might sub Wednesday at Del Rio High School, but Tuesday I may be at an elementary, well, they're pretty much covering a class, and it doesn't make sense to be paying them a whole hour and a half in this case because we're block scheduled to do nothing. But if somebody is subbing on a long-term basis, they shouldn't be pulled, and we'll make sure to address that. But I want to make it clear, for those that sub one day yes, one day no, we're not going to pay you for a full day and only get 75% of the services for it.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
I missed the retirement ceremony, but that's where we need to recruit our middle school people.
And we've been talking about getting a roster of all the retirees from previous years and sending them notice that the rate has increased, because it used to be $85.
This is a big step because this is what is needed to kind of entice them back in.
Definitely.
No means. Anyone else? But that's a wonderful thing that we're doing.
Thank you.
All right, good evening once again. We're going to go ahead and continue with the interactive budget workbook for the 2023-2024 proposed budget.
Sorry, Amy,
Oh.
before we begin, were we able to load it on their laptops, the workbook?
No, we did not. Do
Okay,
you want to take a minute?
it would only take us a couple of minutes. Do you want us to go on the screen, or do you want us to get Reno and the rest of us to load it on there real quick so that you can see it? It's just going to be difficult for it to follow. Can we take a 5-minute recess, Mr. Massa? We can do it? Sure. Can y'all get some thumb drives so that we can do it real quick?
Take a 5-minute recess.
Yes, sir. Increase, and TASB came at the end of April and provided us a workshop on this.
We're reconvening after our recess.
Oh, sorry. They provided us 4 different models, and I just want to say that each model does include a increase to the midpoint, as well as, if you remember, we voted last year to increase the minimum pay to $15 an hour. Last year, we did up to $13.50. This year, each of the models does include the remainder of that up to $15 for the minimum starting pay. So it is built into each of the models already in the system. So the first model we have would be a 3% increase. That would be a starting salary for teachers of $53,150. It would be an $1,800 increase for teacher pay, a 3% increase to the midpoint for the categories, the administrative professionals, the paraprofessionals, and the auxiliary, and would be a total cost estimate of $2,826,587. The second model we have would be a 4% increase to the midpoint. It would result in a teacher starting salary of $53,750. It would be a general pay increase to teachers of $2,400, as well as a 4% increase to the midpoint for the administrative professionals, the paraprofessionals, and the auxiliary, which brings us to a total cost estimate of $3,452,178. If you'll scroll over a little bit. The third model we have is a 5% increase. This would result in a teacher starting salary of $54,350. It would be a 5% general pay increase, resulting in $3,000 for teachers. Administrative professionals, paraprofessionals, and auxiliary would be a 5% increase to the midpoint, resulting in a total cost estimate of $4,090,804. And the fourth estimate that we have, the fourth model, would be a 6% increase, would result in a teacher starting salary of $54,950. A 6% general pay increase for teachers would be $3,600. Administrative, paraprofessionals, and auxiliary would be a 6% increase to their midpoint values, for a total cost estimate of $4,738,681. At this time, for this presentation purposes, administration has selected Model D, the 6% increase for our tabulations. Any questions on this tab?
Anyone? Board members? Questions?
I'm happy with that.
Okay. And again, we do have it where we will provide you, you can go in and select and then send these back to us for your input. We'll load those for you. The second tab we'll be looking at is the Personnel tab. This will be for any salary conversions, additions, or reductions to the 2022-23 salary budgets. The first ones we have are the ones that Ms. Hernandez spoke about for the special ed department. We are looking at adding 2 speech pathologist positions, 2 speech pathology assistant positions, 2 ARD facilitators, 2 diagnosticians, and 1 dyslexia teacher. The bottom half of this section has to do with changes that have already happened in the 2022-23 budget that will be carried over to 23-24. These are all, so we did have, we added 4 critical needs assistants during the year. And then the remainder positions are all vacancy positions that we have had on the books. And we are looking at, we deleted 4 help counselor positions that we had on the books that are vacancies that are no longer needed. We're looking at deleting 14 excess teacher vacancy positions. And then we also have some vacancy positions that we have on hold or that pending deletion. Again, they are excess vacancy positions. We have 15 teacher positions, 3 instructional aid positions, 4 library/resource aid positions, 2 security guard positions, and 1 safety monitor position. All in all, this would be a reduction of $1,689,436 to our salary personnel positions.
Questions from board members? Now, when we say security guard, Dr. Rios,
I wanted to make 2 comments, and that was one of them. So in those cases, we've converted from security guard to police officer, to a peace officer.
So you're not losing the people. You're not losing the people.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, that's one comment. The second comment is that this is what we've been able to do to this point. We have a meeting scheduled with our secondary principals to review the master schedule, just to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that we have the average class load per classes, and that we have as much efficiency as possible, because as you will see in the last tab, we're still in a deficit, and our goal is to present to y'all a budget so that you can award whatever raise you think best and not have to take money from fund balance. So personnel, that looks good so far, but we still have some work to do, and we hope to be able to deliver some more savings here in the month of June.
the difficult thing is we don't know what legislative session's going to do, so.
Well, we're going to take a guess at it here at the last tab.
Okay.
Ms. Webb?
Is it possible, Dr. Rios, to keep on hold a position for an added police officer so that we can always have,
Yeah, we can.
because we always need them either at the high school or middle school or someone,
We can, and we're working to convert,
at least a couple of them. If we can do 1 or maybe 2.
sure. Are you taking notes? Okay.
I just want to ask a question. Are we short on any, let's say, bus monitors or any transportation people?
Well, I'll have a visit with Mr. Cabello. She supervises transportation, so we'll just double check, but I don't think we're short, sir.
Okay.
But we'll just make sure.
Okay. The next tab we have is our insurance tab. A couple weeks ago, Mr. Coldaway from Brown & Brown came down and gave us also a budget workshop on our health insurance plan. We are looking for our self-funded insurance fund to end the fiscal year with about $2 million. And so due to this fund balance, we're asking for you to consider the district increasing their contribution to the health insurance plan. The first option we have would be for the district insurance contribution increase of $53.62 per pay period, or $107.23 a month. This would be no increase to the employee side of the contribution. It would result in a district contribution of an additional $1 million from general fund, as well as $1 million would be set aside in our committed funds also. The second option we have would be for the district insurance contribution to increase by $48.12 per pay period per employee, or $96.23 a month per employee. But it would also be an employee contribution would increase as below. If the employees are on the employee-only plan, there will be no contribution on their part. For those under the employee and spouse plan, it would be a $42.58 per pay period, or $85.15 a month increase. For those on the employee and children, it would be a $21.10 per pay period, or $42.20 a month increase. And for those on the employee and family plan, it would be a $66.43 per pay period, or $132.85 per month increase on the employee side. This would be an $800,000 increase to our general fund contribution, as well as $1 million set aside in committed funds for this increase. At this time, for these purposes, administration has chosen the second option. Any questions?
Anyone? Becky? No questions? Ms. Jordan, are you good?
Thank you.
No questions.
Okay. The next couple of tabs we're looking at are for what we call our sustainability plan. Our first budget workshop was covered. Mr. Corretto gave a presentation on the sustainability plan, and so I'm just going to go over those items once more. The first items we have are for construction. These are for fencing replacements at the SGLC, North Heights, Cardwell, and Lamar. And as you can see at this time, administration has selected no for these items due to, as President Mesa mentioned, we are still pending state legislature funding for safety measures. And so once we receive a little bit more guidance on the amounts that we'll be receiving for those, then we'll be better able to budget the replacements that we want to do for that. Any questions?
Questions? No questions?
The next tab we are looking at is under operations. Again, this was a part of the sustainability plan. And the items that we have on this are HVAC replacements at Garfield and at the annexes, old gym floor at Del Rio High School, stadium light bulb retrofit at Del Rio High School, furniture replacement at Chavita and Calderon Elementaries, interior painting at Garfield and Lamar campuses, exterior painting at Buena Vista and Lamar campuses. The maintenance department has put in a request for some service vehicles. We also have some roof repairs at the Del Rio High School wings that need to be done, as well as the construction of a warehouse at the old Garfield location. And again, for budgeting purposes, we have selected yes on all of these, but again, you can go in and on yours individual one and choose. So that would be a total of $1,440,000.
Any questions? No.
Okay. The next tab I have is our technology sustainability plan. And again, we have a refresh of the desktop computers that are currently in use for the district. Also, a refresh for those who have laptop computers for the district. And then we have the MDF's IDF HVAC for the storage room, for the server room. That would be a total of $515,000 for technology sustainability.
What is that, MDF?
I don't have Mr.
The
Simmons
MDF
here.
is, what campus is that at?
I believe it's for the server,
District.
the district server room over in technology.
Yeah, it's the main distribution
main.
frame. Yes, for the district, and it looks
right.
like it's, we have to keep that very well air conditioned. It's kind of like the brains of the district. Can't let it overheat.
Okay. The next tab we have this evening is for a project that has been brought to us, the athletics locker rooms. So the locker rooms at the Del Rio High School gym have not been updated in 10+ years. So we put together the cost of what it would be to upgrade each of the locker rooms, and then we ranked them in accordance to a priority list. And at this time, administration has selected the varsity football and the JV football locker rooms. And for that, it would be a cost of $123,367.
So, Mr. Meza,
Yes.
just make a point. We asked Coach McCray to evaluate all of the locker rooms with the greatest need. So obviously, he put all of them out there, but the amount might be cost prohibitive. So we said, well, we're probably not gonna be able to do $500,000 worth of lockers. But if you can go back and evaluate which has had the greatest need, and then we can build this into our sustainability plan where we can do, 2, 3, or 4 every year, if the budget permits, then eventually we'll get them all retrofitted. We don't know what the budget's gonna look like at the end, so for planning purposes, we said yes to the ones with the greatest need. I would encourage the board, when you look at this, because that came from administration, rather than pick and choose, we either say yes to some from the top to the bottom, or say no to all of them, based on what the budget is. But again, this is from feedback from our athletic director saying, I want to replace all of them because they're all outdated, but these are definitely the ones with the highest need. So anyway, that's my recommendation.
Amy, where did you get that sum total of these two, varsity and JV?
Oh, right here. On line 41. This is 60,824 plus the 62,542,
Uh-huh.
123,367.
Yes, scoot all to your left to see that.
Okay, I see it.
All right. So the final tab that is marked proposed budget. For the revenue scenario, we of course are using, again, legislature is still in session. House Bill 100 was actually in the subcommittee today. So we're waiting to hear whether the funding, types of funding whether it passed or what types of funding we might be receiving. But for currently, the revenue has been proposed based on current law. So we are looking at a projected revenue of $100,180,180. For our expenditures, we have total projected expenditures of $111,503,079, which brings us to a variance of a deficit of $11,322,899. However, At this time, we'd like to mention some of the proposed 2023-24 funding that we are hearing is out there. That includes an increase to the basic allotment of $50. The basic allotment is currently $6,160. They're looking at a $50 increase, which would bring it to $6,210, which would provide us with about $500,000. In addition, there is mention of a teacher retention allotment for 2023-24. For districts with 20,000 or more students, they're looking at a $2,000 per teacher. For districts with 20,000 or less, they're looking at a $6,000 per teacher. We are estimating that we'd have about 700 teachers, so that would be an estimate of about $4.2 million in additional funding for us. In addition, we still have some ESSER 3 remaining funds. ESSER 2 is ending in September of this year. ESSER 3 is ending, but we have a carry forward period for one more year. So we have an additional $5 million available in ESSER 3 funding for 2023-24 that we would be able to apply to the deficit for any purposes. So that, at this time, if we receive the proposed additional funding, we would have a projected variance of a deficit of a little over $1.6 million.
Dr. Rios?
So first, we don't know what the state is going to provide in terms of assistance for teacher pay raises. So then we would fluctuate our recommendation based on those recommendations. Part I want to emphasize is that we still have a good ways to go on being more efficient with the master schedule. So there's going to be other savings that we can provide with personnel without having to in any way compromise the safety of our students or the workload of our teachers. So there is room where we can overcome that deficit. You also have a lot of the projects under operations, whether you choose to fund or not, whether it be technology refresh or it be some of the construction projects or it just be even some of the lockers for athletics, all of those areas. We feel very confident that if the state provides at least that much assistance, then we would have no problem meeting the financial needs for this coming school year. But a lot does depend on what the state does. And so we're hopeful for that.
Couple of questions. Are you finished?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I don't see the carryover funds from this year, unexpended.
Sir, the budget carryover from this year, that's not finalized until January when they do our audit. That's for the general budget. Now, if you're talking about the committed funds that we're going to recommit, well, that's the meeting after we approve the budget.
Okay, so the data has already expired for any expenses incurred for this year? Deadline?
For out-of-town vendors from our different budgets, yes, sir, but they haven't finished cleaning that up yet.
Okay. So we should see it in June?
Yes, sir. The last week of June, after we adopt the budget, we have the final financials, estimated financials, the last week of June, and I'll provide an estimate at that time.
Okay. Dr. Rios, I'd like to request for the June meeting then to see campus budgets as far as how much money was left over for supplies, and then figure out, we had pretty much 8% cost of living increase, so campus budgets need to increase as well. For the money, the dollar has shrunk, so we need to. Dr. Rios?
I agree that campuses require more resources. However, and it's not too much of a criticism, but we have placed a lot of those added expenses on the district budget. So for example, all of the software that the kids are using, most of it comes directly from the budget that you approved to the CNI budget. A lot of the resources comes through the, I don't know what, these days I'm just having trouble with all my acronyms, but what's our fund, Ida Gomez, for the IMA, Instructional Materials Allotment. So I agree, Mr. Mesa, that the campuses need more resources. We all agree with you, but we just want to make clear, and we're going to prepare something to where you see how many expenses for the campus come from the budgets that you allot already for all these expenditures. So you'll clearly see we're spending more, but we're also trying to provide more direction in how they spend and still provide money for different resources that the campuses may want to buy.
Yeah, and I'm talking about instructional material. If we're gonna, for example, dual language, if that is one of the initiatives, which it is, then there will be some materials that will be needed for classroom use. And a lot of times they don't get that opportunity to see, to go to a conference as we go and see the vendors and see what materials available, but there's a lot of material, let's say dual language on itself. And not talking about all the others, but there will be some
Yes, sir.
instructional materials
Yes, sir.
needed. Ms. Webb?
Along those lines, Dr. Rios, how about upgrades on the electrical work, like for the high school, middle school, when they're testing and everything's online,
Yes.
so that our breakers don't?
It's all addressed.
It's on the agenda. After a while, we're going to ask y'all to make a change so we can pay for some of this. But absolutely, we have a couple campuses that we have to upgrade, and that's been discussed and to a certain extent approved, and some of those repairs have already been made. Like freshman campus is a big one, except that we didn't make the whole freshman campus, we just did the main wing, and now we have to finish the main wing and the other auxiliary wings. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna ask for a report again from campus budgets, leftovers.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Rodindo.
I just had a quick question. In March or April, y'all gave us the large project workbook. Where is that incorporated into here if we wanted to choose that, or is that a separate, when we were talking about, it had everything from the water loop, the fee for the water loop, it had upgrades if you chose certain schools, it had all the school fencing, all campuses. Is that gonna be in the workbook that we get, or is this it right here?
So, no, sir, the money from committed funds.
Okay.
That's entirely
That's a separate-
separate.
okay.
But we've already, from that workshop that we did, we've already done 2 projects, and we're recommending a 3rd project tonight.
Okay.
And then at the end, any projects that we haven't done, we'll recap it.
Okay.
But that is entirely
A separate,
from fund balance.
Okay.
Beyond the required amount that we have to keep.
so like the fencing though, we could still wait to see for state legislature what they're gonna provide for those safety measures and use that funding for that. Like here you have the fencing replacement, but like say on that workbook, we had like the 18 schools on there. We wanted to replace all the fencing. We would get that funding from there and we could use it for that as well then?
Yes, sir. So you have options. So let's just say that the state did not provide extra security money where we could use for fencing.
Okay,
Then the board could direct the superintendent to say, okay, well, we can't do these 3 because the state didn't provide the funds. How much money from unrestricted fund balance can you provide to do
Okay.
this? And then we'd have that discussion. Or let's say that the state does provide enough money, but you say, well, we need to hurry up. I'd like for us to do 2 more. Okay, well, then we could go into fund balance.
Into this area
and-
here.
And add a couple more. So you have a varied mix of options.
okay. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Dr. Rios, one other question. On the teacher incentive allotment, is this from state coming to the districts? The money that is spent for teacher incentive allotment?
100% of it, sir, will come from the state.
From the state. Okay. Anyone else? We're good.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So we will adjourn the workshop and go into our special call meeting. And first item that we have is going to be, well, we have a consent agenda, a very short consent agenda. Are there any questions on
Sorry,
any,
no citizens? Okay, yeah.
any questions on those purchases? Item G? Mr. Olindo?
I do. You could just, I have a question on G3, possibly if you can help me out with that,
G3.
Dr. Rios. And the ERO proposal, I know we're proving what we had already been told, 185,000. Can you just explain to me on the professional service fee, it says ERO invoices 185,625. Then when it completes its funding for the project, they'll be paid a remaining 226,000. What is that? Can you explain the difference on it?
Yes, sir. The fees for ERO to do all of the construction projects is usually a lot higher than the amount here. But the conversation that we had with them was that, look, we're paying for a project that realistically, I mean, we trust it'll get built, but realistically, we don't have any guarantee
Okay.
because we don't have the funding there. But the grant requires us to have what they call shovel-ready documents to be able to apply for those grants. So why don't we do a team approach to this, and if it gets financed, then we pay you the rest of the amount. But if we don't, then let's both have a little skin in the game, minimize the district's losses, and they were agreeable. So that's what that.
That's like the startup cost. Let's just get you started, and if you're good, then pay off the rest, and if not, then.
Well, in reality, here they're doing about 80% of the work for 50% of the pay.
Okay.
But yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, I just saw that, and I was like, well, so we're, I appreciate that. Thanks for letting me know this.
Anyone else? I'm sure that these RFPs, this was the least amount on these.
Yes, sir.
Item 2 is what we just went over earlier in regard to special education, psychoeducational assessments. Item G2.
Yes, but that could really be a mix of any of the services provided by Presence Learning. It could be FIEs for the learning. They do all assessments.
Okay. Anyone else with any other questions? If we're good on the consent agenda, again, one action, we'll approve all items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Ms. Gonzalez, seconded by Becky Chavez. All those in favor? Okay. Motion is approved. Consent agenda is taken care of. We go on to administration. Next item we have is 12A. Consideration to approve a resolution of the board regarding policy FMH, local student activities commencement. Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening once again, Dr. Rios, Mr. Mesa, and members of the board. Board policy FMH local requires a student to meet all state and graduation requirements, including all applicable state testing, in order to participate in graduation activities and exercises. TEA has notified, the agency has notified us that they will be releasing performance results for the START EOC assessments on May 31st, 2023, which is the date after graduation. So because of that, the administration finds the need to suspend local policy provisions addressing FMH local for this year only, to allow students the opportunity to participate in commencement activities and ceremonies.
Questions? Sandra, I do have lots of questions. What happens if they don't? If they come across, walk across, get a diploma, and Dr. Rios?
So if they don't get it, if they don't pass the test, the school district will make sure that the parents and the students know that this is just a ceremony. The actual diploma will not be conferred until they meet the requirements. And we will continue to work with them. Now, in this case, we only have 3 students.
That's all?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Everybody else has met the requirements.
Okay. That's a relief. Anyone else? We're done. Questions? Okay, I understand now. No questions, so recommendation?
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution of the board regarding policy FMH local student activities commencement as discussed.
Heard the recommendation, there's a motion by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries. Unanimous. Right, Vicki?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Rios, this is for graduation, but what about the elementaries? If we don't have the STAR tests and all that, they come, what time, when do they come in?
So the STAR test will not come in until August. But remember that the success or failure on the STAR test is no longer a requirement for promotion. It's a district decision. So we will offer summer school, but we already know who our kids are identified that need interventions based on our House Bill 4545 list. So we don't need the test results for promotion.
Okay. Now, another question, if they do not attend summer school, there will not be a grade placement committee that sends them on?
No, sir. We have students, if they are required to go to summer school for promotion, which is probably a limited number. Is that correct, Ida? Most of our kids are there for House Bill 4545. Some kids have already been told that summer school won't make a difference. Their shortfall is so wide that it could be made up in summer school. So some kids have already been told that they're being retained without going to summer school.
Okay. What I want to avoid, and again, I've stated this year after year, is when they start accruing credits, when they go from 7th, 8th grade to freshman, and they're not able to get out of freshman because they've been placed at the next grade level, that's when they're not able to receive the credits or earn the credits that they need for promotion.
Yes, sir. And in the last 4 or 5 years, I think that a lot of that was solved by having a lot of retained students placed at the Blended Learning Academy. So that was a huge decision, and we've just seen a whole lot more success. And this year, boy, the graduation rate is going to be tremendous. So that's all great news.
Good, good. Okay, we go on to the next item of business, and item 15, Business and Finance. 15A, consideration to approve modification of the 2022-2023 general fund balance commitments. Amy Childress.
Good evening once again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. At this time, we are looking to modify our 2022-23 committed fund projects. We currently have 2 projects, the Del Rio High School parking lot extension and landscaping project, and the Del Rio High School topographic survey project that will not occur this year. So we would like to request a modification to reallocate those funds to asphalt work, which will occur at the warehouse, Del Rio High School band parking lot, and Chavita Elementary, as well as electrical work upgrades at the Del Rio High School and Del Rio freshman campuses. In addition, we would like to add the ERO contract for the drawings for the new Roberto Bobby Barrera Elementary School in the amount of $185,625 to the committed fund balance.
The update that you did.
Sir.
Questions from board members? We have that information on the update that we received from Dr. Rios. No questions, recommendation?
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the modification of the 2022-2023 general fund balance commitments as discussed.
Heard the recommendation, There's a motion by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. The time is 6:49 PM. We are going to go into closed session. If an item needs to be voted on, it will be voted upon reconvening into open session. We're now in closed session.
We saw the revolution, so definitely.
Okay, the time is 8:03. We are going to 8:03 PM. We're reconvening into open session. No action was taken in executive. We're down to item 20A, consideration to approve the personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, and resignations. I think Garcia.
Good evening again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resignation, vacancies, and following new personnel. Vicky Almaraz, kindergarten teacher at Ceniza Hills Elementary.
That's the only one. Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Amy Haynes, seconded by Mr. Galindo. All those in favor? Motion carries. Item 20B, consideration, discussion, possible action to submit TA applications for assistant principal and principal certification waivers. Ede Garcia.
President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board, we would like to recommend Assistant Principal Kami Timms for Buena Vista Elementary.
We gotta do the
waiver
waiver. The waivers.
Yeah, so, okay, she's gonna call out the individuals whose waivers we're recommending.
Okay.
And then we gotta come back, and then after the waiver's been recommended by the board, we'll come back and recommend them for the position.
Okay,
So in this one, in this item, she's gonna list everybody who's getting a waiver.
okay.
Right, right now?
Yes.
Okay. So individuals who will be applying for a waiver is Kami Timms, Buena Vista Elementary. Jessica Voss, Ceniza Hill, Assistant Principal. Jesse Davila, Assistant Principal, Del Rio Freshman School.
He's also getting a waiver.
And Aurora Guerra, Principal for Robert Bobby Barrera Elementary.
Sorry, did you mention the Garfield one?
Those would be, yes, I'm sorry. Alma Cavazos, Del Rio, Alma Cavazos, Dr. Fermin Calderon Elementary Assistant Principal, and Dolimar Gonzalez, Garfield Elementary Assistant Principal.
Okay. That includes everyone. Okay. For the recommendation, is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Becky Chavez, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 20C, consideration to approve the position of bilingual/ESL strategist for San Felipe Memorial Middle School. Ede Garcia.
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Claudia Talamantes, bilingual ESL strategist for San Felipe Memorial Middle School.
For the recommendation, is there a motion for approval? Mr. Galindo made the motion, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 20D, consideration to approve the position of assistant principal for Buena Vista Elementary.
So we already recommended those under the
Those were the waiver.
waivers.
For the waivers.
Okay, but that was just the application for the waiver.
Okay.
Now
So
we're,
now listen,
Yes.
okay. So it is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Kami Timms, Assistant Principal for Buena Vista Elementary.
For the recommendation, is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Galindo. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 20E, consideration to approve the position of assistant principal for Ceniza Hills Elementary.
It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Jessica Voss, Assistant Principal for Ceniza Hills Elementary.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Becky Chavez, seconded by Emilio Galindo. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Master, we will be tabling items F, G, and H.
Okay, item F, G, and H.
6, 7, and 8.
Item 20I, consideration to approve the position of Assistant Principal for Del Rio High School, Ade Garcia.
It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Jonah DeWitt, Assistant Principal for Del Rio High School.
Heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Amy Haynes, seconded by Mr. Galindo. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Becky, you did vote, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Master, we'll be tabling item J.
It's J.
Item J is tabled. Item 20K, consideration to approve the position of principal for Robert Bobby Barrera STEM Magnet, De Garcia.
It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Aurora Guerra as principal for Robert Bobby Barrera Elementary.
You've heard the recommendation. I'll entertain motion for approval. Motion made by Becky Chavez. Is there a second to the motion? Amy Haynes seconded. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 20L, consideration to approve the position of Assistant Principal for Del Rio Middle School, 8th grade. Ade Garcia.
It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Raul Hurtado as Assistant Principal at Del Rio Middle School.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 20M, consideration to approve the position of Assistant Principal for Dr. Fermin Calderon Elementary, Ade Garcia.
It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Alma Cavazos as Assistant Principal for Dr. Fermin Calderon Elementary.
Correction,
It was
she's
in
already
Calderon.
there. It was a waiver. and
It
we
was a
listed
waiver.
under the waivers.
Yes, and so is Garfield.
She was already there.
Please table item M and N, sir.
M and N, okay.
M and N?
Okay, we're tabling item M, 20M, and 20N. There being no other items on the agenda, is there a motion for adjournment? Motion made by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor?
It has a number, not a letter.
Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.